I'm sure we can all agree that this is a tumultuous time in our country. And I believe that we could all use a little bit more empathy and understanding in our lives. And I think we can all agree on that too, at least on some level. So I'm going to start off just by asking you, and you can nod or raise your hand if you like, who of you has ever felt, even for a moment in your life, that you'd been unfairly treated? Feels like a pretty common human experience. And who of you has ever thought, no one understands me? Yeah, I'm sure you're not surprised to know that you're not alone in that. In fact, for all of our lives, for all of human existence, this has been something that we've struggled with. To understand ourselves, to understand each other. And for centuries, humans have been attempting to share their stories. Ancient peoples would share stories through oral tradition. Cavemen would draw pictures on walls. We began to write our stories down in stone, on paper, and then distribute them to the world. And fast forward to today, when we have media involved in our everyday lives, and in this country, even our every minute lives. We're constantly on our media. And so, for the first time in history, we actually have a medium available to us that allows us to experience the story of another, not from an outside perspective, but to actually step into the shoes of someone else's life, to look into a mirror and see a different face. Virtual reality allows us to have vivid personal experiences that feel real and that our brain treats as real. Now, for some of you who may not know what virtual reality is, I'll give a brief overview. VR is basically a combination of different technical features, tracking your body movements, displaying the scene, and graphical rendering, computer graphics. And all of those combine, usually in a head-mounted display, a set of goggles that you place on your head, to give you an experience as if you're inside of a virtual environment. So when you put on a head-mounted display, it should feel like no other media experience that you've had. It won't be like you're watching Netflix and the kids are yelling and the dog is barking. It will be like you're just there. When you put on that headset, you're experiencing something new, and everything that's going on in the real world goes away. But virtual reality is not just an opportunity to escape the real world. It's also an opportunity for us to understand each other, to experience things that have been otherwise impossible in our lifetimes. And those experiences can carry through to our real lives. Now, I grew up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I worked at Zips Drive-In when it was still there. I swam in the lake. I graduated from Lake City High School. And when I graduated, I went off to Stanford for college, and my whole life turned upside down. When I arrived there, I felt like no one understood me, maybe no one liked me. I was lost. But it didn't take long until I grew to love my Stanford home, and I really loved the diverse community that I found there. It was like no other place I'd been. And I also discovered virtual reality there, and I started to study media at a deeper level. So when I graduated Stanford, I became the lab manager at the Virtual Human Interaction Lab. And we study the ways in which virtual reality can impact your thoughts and behaviors, and the ways in which VR is different from other media that you experience. And one of the main topics that we focus on is empathy. We build and test virtual simulations that allow you to experience the life of someone else. And what we find in our studies is that there's something special about the virtual experience that is particularly impactful for building empathy, prosocial behavior, and generally positive change in the world. And when I was a student, I was lucky enough to be able to run my own experiment, and I studied the ways in which VR can impact prosocial behavior, along with some colleagues at Stanford. And in that study, we wanted to find out if giving someone a virtual superpower would make them more helpful in real life. So, participants would put on the headset and imagine that all of a sudden you were in a city. And when you put your arms over your head, you take flight. And then you use your body to navigate. And this is exactly what we did. And we had participants fly through the city and look for a lost child and save that child's life. And we compared that condition to one in which people were passengers in a helicopter. So they were completing the same task, but they didn't have that virtual superpower. And afterwards, we would stage an accident. So the participant would take off their equipment, and then the researcher would be in need of help. And we videotaped their response to that. And people who had a virtual superpower actually got up out of their seat faster. They came over to help. They helped more thoroughly than those in the other condition. Now, I can't tell you how much I learned from that experience. I can't even express it. It really showed me that virtual reality has the capacity to give us truly transformative experiences. And I encourage you to try it when you get the chance. But I know we already have many media choices in our lives. You probably make dozens, maybe even hundreds of decisions about your media every day. Which apps to download, what video to watch, what games to play, and then the many decisions that come after each of those. And in this environment where we have so many media choices, we have a great power as well. We have the power to choose exactly what we see and experience every single day. But oftentimes, we'll choose media that is comfortable. We'll choose media that already falls in line with what we believe. It's what political scientists and communication scholars call the media echo chamber. And the danger of choosing media that falls in line with what you believe already is that you lose a little bit of the opportunity to learn and grow. Every time we have growth in our lives, it's because we've experienced something new, something difficult. I want you to think of a time in your life when you had a powerful experience, something that changed who you are as a person. If you take a moment, I'm sure you can bring that memory up. It's probably a vivid one you'll never forget. And for most of us, that's because it was a remarkable experience. It was new or difficult or sad. And you don't get those remarkable experiences by just doing the same thing every day. But of course, I know that it's hard to change. It's hard to change our habits. It's uncomfortable to listen to someone's opinion that doesn't fall in line with yours. It can be painful to empathize with other people. Empathy is hard. We each have our own problems, our own struggles. Why should we go out of our way to take on the pain of someone else? Well, I can tell you in my experience that the difficulty that comes with empathizing with other people is far outweighed by the endless positive impact of that decision. When I began to truly seek out the stories of others, to try and understand what other people went through, take myself out of my life a little bit, I can tell you that it really changed my outlook. I grew up believing that I was already forward-thinking, that I understood the world fairly well, and that I knew what struggle was. I wasn't privileged. I worked hard. I was poor. And it was hard for me to let go of those ideas a little bit and try to understand my own biases and my own privilege. I was born healthy. I have the potential for intelligence. I have a very loving family. I didn't grow up in a community that was wrought with violence. I'm white. These are all factors that have impacted my experience. And when I came to understand that and accept that, the world truly opened up to me. I was able to love my friends and my colleagues and my neighbors in a way that I hadn't been able to before. I no longer had just one life, just one experience. I had the experiences of others as well. I could now stand up not just for what I believed in and what applied to me, but what was good for everyone. And it was incredible. I've had many empathic experiences in VR. I've watched thousands of people put on the headset and take it off with a new perspective. And it's truly changed the way that I think about the world. Now, some of you may be thinking that VR doesn't have much staying power, but I'm here to tell you that it's truly here to stay. And if you have the opportunity to try it, you should. You should try new media. You should try new technologies and new experiences. But of course, it's not always that easy. And even if you only try VR once, or if it's in your living room next week, I think you'll find that it's something that's new, something you've never seen before, something that may change the way you think a little bit. But in the meantime, you don't have to have VR to choose empathy. We have so many possibilities at our fingertips every day. Just take a moment out of your day, out of your week. Resist beating that next level in Candy Crush. Press pause on Netflix for the movie you've seen 100 times. And try to dig a little deeper and find out more about the world around you. Maybe search for something that you wouldn't normally search for, listen to a story that you might have ignored before. It just takes a moment. We can all try to diversify our media experience every day. And some of you may be thinking, well, I already do this. I have so many options in my day. I watch so many videos and I do so many things. How can I add more to that? Well, I'm here to tell you that VR has taught me that there are experiences in the world left to be had that we can't even fathom. There are things coming in our future that I don't possess the mental capacity to even imagine. But I know that there's loads of positive potential, and I want to get there. And if we choose to put our energy into the technologies and into the applications that will allow us to understand one another as people, we can change the world. It doesn't take much. Imagine a world in which all of us understand the experiences of one another. The possibilities are really endless. And all you have to do is try.